Wow, wasn't that terrific? Children certainly give energy in life, don't they? And quite contagious energy, I find. Hope you do too. So, the road to Emmaus, surely one of the top 3 favourite Gospels of all time. Scripture scholars tell us that this would have been a story told to the early Christians to help them to understand better the Eucharist. And it certainly has the 2 major elements of the Mass, doesn't it? Word and meal. But as we reflect on the Eucharist, there's always more and more to be learnt. Scripture and liturgy guru, Melbourne priest Frank O'Loughlin, says that the Eucharist is like an 8-sided diamond, and we can only concentrate on 1 or 2 sides at a time. It might be real presence, it might be the music, it might be word. I want to look at, just briefly, 5 elements that this Gospel, the road to Emmaus, brings out. Firstly, reality. Our 2 walking on the road to Emmaus, the Gospel says, are downcast, and they say our hearts, our hopes had been that he would be the one, Jesus would be the one to free us from the Roman occupation. But folks, you and I come to Mass also with things inside us. It may be that on a particular weekend we're very grateful, or it might be that we're worried, or it might be that we're distracted about something like the football the night before. But we always come with matter inside us, and we join that reality of inside us with other people's reality, and we have one big whole. So reality, the first of the elements that I wish to think about from this Gospel. Now the Scriptures are the second element. God speaks through the lector and we respond. Note please, that's exactly what Jesus does in the Gospel. He catches up to our 2 heroes and he says to them, what have you been talking about as you walk along the way? And they tell him. And then, only then, after Jesus has listened, does Jesus speak. It's a bit hard for us because so often we spontaneously have an answer before the person has finished speaking themselves. And that's, by the way, just what the Plenary Council is asking of us to do, to listen, reflect, and then respond boldly, to talk up. And please, that's an important element of it, isn't it? To speak up boldly. Our church does need change, but there's no point in us saying, oh, I wish it would happen. It won't just happen because we want it to happen, huh? Anyway, back to the Gospel and what the Gospel of today is teaching us about the Eucharist. The first half of the Mass is dialogue, isn't it? God speaks and we listen. We listen and then respond. That's why it's called a responsorial psalm, for example. The third element from this Gospel, hospitality. It's getting almost night, they say. Stay with us. Very impressive folks. Remember that they didn't know that their new companion was Jesus. They just knew him as someone who happened to catch up with them as they plodded on their road to Emmaus. Folks, hospitality is very much a given in the Eucharist. Just think how spontaneously you've taken to the gathering space cuppers after Mass of a Sunday morning. Those of you who come along Saturday night or to Holy Cross also are aware of each other. You catch up with each other, you share your stories and what's been going on during the week. Very important. When we get back together, hopefully sooner than later, an aim I hope, will be to look for the new person in Mass, to look for the person who's a bit shy and diffident, and say to them, can I get you a cuppa? That can I get you hospitality in that simple way is a challenge, but it's very much gospel. Now our fourth element, ta-da, Jesus sits at table with them, and they recognise him in the breaking of the bread. They recognise him in the breaking of the bread. You'd know well that this was one of the earliest titles that the Mass was given. The sign of peace sometimes gets in the way of our third element of the liturgy of the Eucharist, the breaking of the bread. Perhaps that's why many Anglican churches and Uniting churches have their Eucharist sign of peace at a different time from what we do. But that doesn't matter really. Just as long as we remember that Jesus comes to us in the breaking of the bread, as in many other ways too. Jesus breaks the bread and then disappears. Jesus gives himself away by giving of himself. And our twosome have new insights. Were not our hearts burning within us, they say, as he talked to us along the way. And what do? They get up from table and immediately hot-footed back to Jerusalem. Don't worry about it being dark night. Don't worry about it being 7 miles from Jerusalem. They go back, racing back to the community. And folks, community, the fifth essential that makes up the Eucharist. The people together are an essential part of the Eucharist, an essential element. The prayer services at home that we've been offering to you and Eucharists online are okay for the time being, but they are only a substitute for the time being when we can't do anything else. Let's look forward to the day when we can gather again at St Kevin's Church, hopefully in the not too distant future. And my hope, what do you think, is that in that time, when we are restored to being able to gather without restrictions of numbers, our first Mass can be a big celebration of all of us in together. And we would have hospitality after that Mass, either a potluck tea after Saturday night Mass or a Butte morning tea after, say, 10 o'clock Mass. What do you think? Please give us your feedback on that. So, 5 elements we've been reflecting on: reality, word, hospitality, table fellowship and community. But of course, as the ad says, there's always more. Thank you.